Cecilia. Now, of course, we're gathered together virtually during Holy Week, a time of deep reflection for Christians as we prepare for Good Friday and then Easter Sunday. What can we learn about solidarity from this week? In particular, as I think of the Easter Vigil, where we hear some of the earliest portions of Scripture, right? We start with those number of readings at the beginning of the Mass um, that lead us to Jesus' resurrection. You've written and spoken a lot about these early readings, in particular Genesis, and what they can tell us about the challenges we face in being of solidarity, on the reality of original sin of humanity. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes. You know, I do theological aesthetics, which means that I enter the questions of theology from creative spaces. So I sat down with the Genesis story of the fall, right? Of Adam and Eve and everything that happens in that story. And I said, what if I look at it as a drama? Because we know, right, these were oral stories that were passed along through generations that helped a community make sense of itself. So I said, what if we look at it as a drama? And what I noticed when I looked at it as a drama, which it was very interesting, the center, I think, of that story is when God asks the question after Adam and Eve have eaten from the forbidden fruit. God asked the question, what happened here? Who did this, right? Who ate from this? Now, if you're a parent like I am and you are, Chris, you know that when you ask that question, it's a rhetorical question because you already know. God knows the answer. God knows there was disobedience involved. Just like we know the kid broke that thing, but we're just asking to see if they'll own up to it, right? I think that's the same thing that's going on. I think God is asking the question, what happened here? And I think that is the moment when human nature betrays us. We don't rise up to our potential and we fall short. And by that I mean that if you remember in the story, what does Adam do right away? She made me do it. It was her fault. She made me do it. He would rather save himself than take the blame. And so at that moment, we see this breakdown of solidarity. Just he couldn't be in solidarity with Eve. And then Eve, right, says, well, the serpent made me do it. She at least doesn't blame Adam, but it's still a breakdown in the solidarity and also their failure to take responsibility. And I like to think about how different the story would be if it had been a story of solidarity. And if when God asked the question, what happened here? Who did what? Adam has said, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. Let me take the blame because he loves her. Or if Eve had said, I'm really sorry, I really made a mistake, and give me the blame. So when I read that story, what I see is our original sin is our lack of solidarity with each other. It's missing. For some reason, our self-preservation, our desire to take care of ourselves seems to come before the moment when we think of the other. And then, we fast forward all of salvation history, right? And we get to that young rabbi living in the region of Palestine, talking about love all the time, talking about a God who was kind of crazy in love with everyone, and who didn't judge and who would kill the fatted calf just because the prodigal son came home, right? And this young rabbi is teaching this, and then comes the moment when he has to either be in solidarity with the God that he knows and with the people that he loves, or he has to renege on them, right? Jesus can walk away when Pilate says to him, and this is what we're going to be, praying about and thinking about this week. He can walk away and he can say, hey, sorry, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean all of that stuff about, this God of love, and about how wrong it is what's going on here, and about how wrong the poverty is, and about how people need to be healed and people need to be cared for. I didn't mean any of that. Just let me go home. I just want to go home. I'll be fine. I won't talk publicly anymore. It's cool. Jesus could have done that. And what does Jesus do? He takes on the solidarity. He says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And he dies. He'd rather not give up on us. And he'd rather not give up on our shared humanity, which is the entire key here, right? Jesus is one of us. He will not give up on us. And so he gives his life rather than give up on us. And then after him, we have multiple stories of those who followed him, who have lived this solidarity to that last moment. Archbishop Romero, the Jesuit martyrs, the women that were killed in El Salvador. So many humans throughout history who have rather said, I will stick in my solidarity with others. I will not keep myself safe. So right now, this is a moment when Lent is alive, right? In our world, in a way that we haven't seen in human history, because it's the entire globe. Will we stand in solidarity, or will we just stand there and blame each other like Adam and Eve did and break God's heart? Because I think that's what happens in the story. God's heart is broken. Or will we be like Jesus? And will we say, no, the story's about love and shared humanity and care for one another and compassion. And that's what we're going to live from right now. And so when I was just recently interviewed by one of the California papers about people not wanting to cancel their religious services because they thought it's more important to have religious services than to follow the guidelines of the health authorities, I said, how can it be okay to put people's lives in danger? That's against God's will. We have to take care of each other right now. And the way to take care of each other is to obey the science and obey what will keep each other safe. So it's a moment when, we get to just talk about stuff that's real and truthful, and just stop, hiding ourselves behind lies and behind laws, just exactly as Jesus did.